double S drifter, separate sipping, and you know I came with it. If she cute with it,
Dope.
Just hit my phone. Now she trying to get me through the day. And whenever I start to feel alone, I just play your voice loud. That I say before things change. Now I read the message you sent, trying to tune out when you say I know you love me, but you just forget about us.
This could take quite a bit of time.
Pardon my autonomy. I know one day they'll honor me. This ain't pertaining to 28 Deuteronomy. Self-determination, controlling our situation. Ain't no more indoctrination from pale faces. How the fuck you bummy and broke but a pair of races? My lineage free people of color with a left make each nigga. This right here maroon, now it ain't burgundy. If you plotting murder, I'm certain that you'll need surgery. Hurt from when the burner squeeze. Protecting tribe business. Only consulting with governments, tribe to tribe with it. Please don't confuse us with those considered native. Semi-autonomy never was in our nature. Just address me as Esther Lusty. Wild Indian status and Cherokees riding Bruchis. In my war bonnet, if you want it, bring it to your region. And black force is the same color the European. Pardon my autonomy. I know one day they'll honor me. This ain't pertaining to 28 Deuteronomy. Self-determination, controlling our situation. Ain't no more indoctrination from pale faces.
Aborigines, which means what? Black folks. You never find a white aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are aborigines, but you don't like to be called an aborigine.
Explaining complex topics can be challenging. Highlight the text you want to simplify and let Grammarly rewrite it.
The following program is from NET, the National Educational Television Network.
The people now called Negroes are the most written about and the least understood of the world's people.
This term, Negro, demoralizes us and isn't detrimental. I feel it doesn't give us any association past the slave ship.
I think that the first task of people of African descent, whether in the United States or in Africa or elsewhere, is to get rid of this slave named Negro.
This curious word Negro was seldom or never used in Africa itself. And this word has no meaning or no worthwhile meaning at all in Africa. I would doubt myself if it has any useful meaning anywhere else.
What is a Negro? A simple question, but the answer is not so simple.
Yeah, no doubt. That's how we do.
Our story begins in the 7th century BCE. The royal house of King David and the tribe of Judah were enslaved by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, after the destruction of the first temple built by King Solomon. In the last episode, Terra Sancta, we extensively covered the migration of the Simri, or the Hebrews, from Babylon to the Iberian Peninsula and the Americas prior to 1492. Don Isaac Aberbano, a 15th century leader, wrote that Nebuchadnezzar brought Jews to Spain as slaves after the destruction of the first temple. In 409 AD, the Vandals captured the Iberian Peninsula from the failing Roman Empire, and 3 years later, the Visigoths conquered it. Under these Germanic Christians, laws were instituted that persecuted the Hebrews. In 587 AD, King Rucair converted to Catholicism, and has declared at the Third Council of Toledo that his kingdom would be officially Catholic. This was a situation that began the downfall of the Jews. The Jews would be the only group that did not join in the religious unity of the country, and this distinction would repeatedly lead to their persecution. For an example, in 612, Visigoth King Sisebutt ordered that all Jews submit to baptism within the year or undergo scourging, mutilation, banishment, and confiscation of goods. This resulted in many Jews emigrating. Many of those who remained became Christians outwardly to escape persecution from the Roman Catholics, but continued practicing their faith secretly. We can also tell from history that not all the Jews who remained converted, as evidenced by the number of additional decrees directed against Jews during the 7th through 19th century. However, these decrees were enforced inconsistently, and bribes to the rules helped encourage tolerance of the Jewish citizens, though the situation remained very dangerous for the Jews. Theodor Fritsch asserted that Jews were a Negroid mix. Rudolf Virchow conducted a research project in which skin color was presented not as an objective fact, but rather as something to be intuitively felt. The general consensus, even among Jews, was that Jews were dark. Jews in the liberal arts and poetry of the Weimar period often depicted Jews as dark or black, as in the work of George Gross. The Swiss-French race theorist and anti-Semite George Alexis Montandon perceived the Jews as an ancient cross of Asiatic and Negro. The term Negro has its origins in Romance languages such as French, Spanish, Latin, and Portuguese, and literally means black or dark, but its usage as a description of people dates back to the Spanish and Portuguese, Spanish colonial casta, or caste systems hierarchically categorize Europeans, Aboriginal Americans, African, and mixed race populations in the Americas.
Why don't you own commercial real estate? Yes, you. Why don't you own commercial property? After all, just one commercial deal can dramatically impact your financial life forever. Just imagine one commercial deal paying all of your monthly expenses.
And so a long time ago, he wrote that, there was a kind of medieval perception that Jews were black. And there's plenty of proof that within Europe, the Jews were considered to be kind of black. There are many images of Jews being black, and even if they weren't black, they were not even slightly black. They were kind of considered to be black in one way or another. So blackness and Jews really went hand in hand. If you read his work, or if you read my work, and particularly if you read this new book, you will see the multitude of examples of it. And if you go, for instance, into the marginalia, the illustrations in English or European prayer books in the 13th and 14th centuries, you frequently see hook-nosed Jews wearing Jewish hats and with black faces. So the idea that Jews were black was definitely there, before the Enlightenment period. And
so let's go to the slides now.
Just a sec, because I just need to say, too, in the 19th century, the idea of Jewish blackness was reinforced by the discovery of all of these actual black Jews in India and Africa, all over the place. And by 1850, the main racial theorists of the day started saying that, yes, actually, Jews are Negroes. Negroes, in some way, are also Jews. This is the conflation. It's partly political, it's partly metaphorical, and it's very, very significantly biological.
Before this, one of the oldest usages of the term can be traced back to the 10th century, to a Hebrew by the name of Yahya ibn Yaish, or Yahya the Negro. Born a Portuguese nobleman, he was known as a direct descendant of the Hebrew exilarchs of ancient Babylonia that claimed direct descent from the biblical King David. The compilation of ancient texts known as the Bible also validates this. In the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 5 and 6, it states,
I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept.
So what do these verses mean? Comely is used here to mean pleasant to look at, attractive, but denotes disagreement, as if to say, if one is to be black, it is contradictory that they are aesthetically appealing. Kedar referred to the darker-skinned people like the Ishmaelites, the Egyptians, Palestinians, and others. The curtains of Solomon likening here is equivocal, since they were very likely purple, the color of royalty in those days. As such, it is agreed upon that she must have intended the more apt tents of Salma in lieu of it, as these were made of black wool. Undeniably, she was referring to the color of her skin in this context and not her heart of sin, as some may like to infer. The reason any of this is important is to gain context on how the earliest usages of the terms Negro and Black were used and what groups those labels were originally applied to. At the turn of the 15th century, we witnessed one of the largest expulsion of Jews following the Alhambra Decree in 1492. This was enacted to eliminate their influence on Spain's large converso population and to ensure its members did not revert to Judaism. Over half of Spain's Jews had converted to Catholicism as a result of the massacre of 1391. Those who did not convert fled to North and West Africa and the Americas. In 1492, we also know Columbus sailed the ocean blue. What we fail to acknowledge is that Spain also decided to expel all Jews from its kingdom. This was the seminal year of the Sephardic diaspora, when Spanish Jews were required to convert to Catholicism or to leave Spain. Much of the population moved on to Portugal, France, and Scotland, or found home in the New World. We must realize that this entire journey rests upon Hebraic foundations. The expedition was conceived and funded and executed by Luis de Santangel, a Jew. The navigation required was designed by Jews. Abraham Zacuto developed astronomical tables, almanacs, and maps, while Levi Ben Gerson is credited with the invention of the sea quadrant, or Jacob's staff, used to guide marine courses. Columbus's first crew included several conversos, or Spanish Jewish converts to Christianity, notably the interpreter Luis Torres. Importantly, 3 conversos in the Spanish court were influential in securing royal approval for the controversial expedition. After the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492, a series of edicts were issued over the next 300 years that resulted in an even larger migration of Jews, or Black Europeans, out of their original lands. In 1510, Jews were expelled from Naples. In 1670, Jews were expelled from Vienna by Leopold I. In 1683, Jews were expelled from King Louis XIV's French colonial Caribbean territories. In fact, the growing migration caused so much of an issue. Benjamin Franklin detailed his concerns in his letter, Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, written in 1751. In it, he says,
"And since detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon supplied and increase so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion?" Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small. All Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also.
Author Jack Forbes also notes, in the British slave colonies, many people of American ancestry were at times classified as blacks, Negroes, mulattoes, or people of color. The point that Aboriginal Americans were quite commonly called Negroes is very much supported by Portuguese usage. During the colonial period, Brazilian Indians were repeatedly referred to as Negroes or as Negros da Terra, Negroes of the land. A great historical showcase of this is found in the genealogical records of South Carolina. The English settlers who founded Charleston in South Carolina brought with them a tradition of ecclesiastical laws intended to govern a community comprised of and governed by people of English descent. The presence of indigenous Americans in and around the early settlement and the importation of enslaved people forced the early settlers of this colony to amend their legal code to recognize the emerging differences within the community. Between 1691 and 1735, the South Carolina General Assembly ratified a series of laws intended to promote what white legislators described as the better ordering of slaves. Within these slave laws, which borrowed elements from the earlier laws of Antigua, Barbados, and Jamaica, the definition of an enslaved person in South Carolina gradually evolved. Following the Stono Uprising in September 1739, our provincial legislature adopted a comprehensive slave law in the 1740 that lasted, with some modifications, for more than a century. The Negro Act of 1740, as it was commonly called, provided South Carolina's first clear legal definitions of who was and who was not a slave. The provincial and state legislatures continued to create additional laws relating to slaves and slavery over the years, but the definitions of status articulated in 1740 endured with little change. In short, South Carolina's early laws recognized four categories or classes of humans. First, in the eyes of the law, were free white men, women, and children of European ancestry. Second, the law recognized free Native Americans living in amity or in a state of friendship with the government of this colony or state. This means within a recognized or acknowledged tribal situation. The law recognized their right to exist and to live freely, but afforded them few civil rights within the legal framework of the dominant white community. The law expected these free Indians would live separately from the urban and suburban centers of society. Third, the law acknowledged that some free citizens held other humans in a state of legal servitude or bondage. This practice, in the eyes of the law, reduced enslaved people to the status of mere property. As such, they had no discernible legal identity or legal existence beyond their servitude. Fourth, the laws of early South Carolina acknowledged that some non-white people here were not enslaved servants and thus not considered property. The law viewed those people, generally known as free people of color, as valid sui juris or independent members of the community. The law did not recognize them as fully formed citizens, however. The mere facts of their skin color and non-European ancestry created legal disabilities that diminished their civil rights. The term free person of color emerged in the 18th century as a sort of legal shorthand to describe a number of free people from diverse ancestral backgrounds. More technically and specifically, that phrase encompassed three distinct groups of people: who are regularly mentioned in South Carolina's early laws, persons classified as free Negroes, persons called free mulattoes, and a third category of free mestizos. The latter term, mestizo, which was borrowed from the Spanish language and has a variety of connotations in other parts of the world, was used in South Carolina to describe people of mixed African and Native American ancestry. Occasionally, one will find the word mestizo spelled musti in 18th century Charleston records. Persons whose genome included African, European, and Native American lineage might have been classified as free mulattoes or free mestizos, depending on their physical appearance. In light of these legal definitions and the colorful vocabulary of early Charleston, one can see that not all free people of color were black. In fact, some insisted in no uncertain terms that they were not black. Witness the existence of the Brown Fellowship Society of Charleston, whose members differentiated themselves from their darker-skinned brethren, who formed separate clubs such as the Humane Brotherhood and the Friendly Moralist Society. Modern historians often use the term free black as a convenient and comprehensive label for the diverse population of free, non-white people. But that phrase is not without its own issues. Most everyone in our society today feels uncomfortable with the historical terms colored, mulatto, and mestizo, so historians and citizens alike continue to struggle to find the most acceptable and appropriate vocabulary to describe this complicated subject.
Yo, what it is, what they do. How y'all doing out there? It's your boy Mac 8. It's been a minute, right? I feel like it's been a minute since we've been up in this bad boy. It's summertime. I ain't gonna lie, it's still summertime. That's why Blaze, he on summer vacation and shit. You know what I mean? So y'all ain't gonna get the mix this week. You know what I mean? Next week, we're gonna make up for that part. But we got a lot of information to cover anyways. And what you seen is kind of like, shout out to Tecumseh. And we want to make sure that everybody gets this information dealing with this part 2. So we had to follow back. Happy Father's Day, past, present. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? For all my folks last week Sunday that was enjoying that joint. And vibe with us, we're gonna get busy. You know what I'm saying? Really at the same time though, you got a lot of stuff going on and people need to really pay attention to this information. I guess anciently speaking, right? But how's it walk up into things that's taking place with the Americas? That's what a lot of people want to know. How this ancient thing relate, you know what I'm saying? So we took a little dive into it. That's why we're doing this series. Not to say that, when we say the Aboriginal story of America, that everybody in the story is Aboriginal to America, but in the manner of telling the story in the most Aboriginal sense, meaning that the word Aboriginal means from the beginning. So we want to kind of give it in its original sense. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I appreciate everybody else tapping in. Shout out to everybody in the chat. You know what I'm saying? Like, subscribe, share, send that out. We live at musicmedialounge.com. You already know what it is. It's your boy Mac 8, the thriller. The harsh reality is to live life autonomously. It's the campaign. Shout out to God of Green, Baron P. You know what I'm saying? Firebird, and all the other guests. You know what I mean? That's obviously been on our show over the time of what we've been doing and vibing with our information, sending us information, etc. You know what I mean? You ready? Let's slide. Let's get busy. I ain't gonna lie. When I heard this shit, this is Schoolboy Q shit. You know what I'm saying? I had to play it. I got that water. Nah. Play that back one more time, man. Santeria. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, see? No? All right, making sure. We getting through some technical. That's all. We checking out some shit. We in the studio. You know what it is. Santeria. Y'all don't know who y'all know who that is, what they showing in the picture. You gonna play it one more time? Play it one more time for the folk. We had a little, you know what I mean? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got that water. Yeah,
All right,
I got
ready.
that water.
I'm ready. So yeah, real talk. I got that water on this joint tonight, and I guess I mean we're gonna drop some gems and stuff, and it's gonna float down the stream. You heard me? Go ahead and give me the source behind that. Santeria, you know what I'm saying? As we talking about the Inquisition, if anybody see the flyers that we put out, Instagram, Facebook, and all the different social platforms, Twitter, whatever the case might be, you'll see that we have been, you know what I mean, promoting what we usually talk about in the subtopics of this situation. But the person they showed in the last clip, you know what I'm talking about, even though in other depictions of him might come off a little bit different, you know what I'm talking about? But at the same time, to give you some background on that clip with the name that they put there, Santeria, that's my pronunciation, right? Santeria was chief of the Santeria tribe, Atamukwa chiefdom, centered at the mouth of St. John River in Florida during the 16th century. His main village, also known as Santeria, was located on the south bank of the river near its mouth. Village chiefs Chief Santeria was a prominent figure in the early days of European settlement in Florida. They need to be more specific. When they say European, so people won't ever get none of this confused, we're talking about the Spanish. Be very specific about what European group we're talking about, right? However the case might be. Forging friendly relations with the French Huguenot settlers who founded Fort Caroline in his territory. So there's a Fort Caroline, not what we call Carolina, but Fort Caroline. You see what I'm saying? I don't want people to get that confused with, you know what I'm saying? That when French and Carolina, however, Santeria was a main chief of the cacique, or cacique, some people say, of the Timucua tribe in this region, including the Indian village of Saloy, located here when Spanish explorers, and they give you the man name. See, now, look, I'm using this because we're going to be talking about another man later on. That they say somehow or another ended up with this man's last name. Menendez? You see that, y'all? Or it says Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez landed in 1565. Nombre de Dios Marcaris, St. Augustine, you heard? The Timucua successfully lived here for 4,000 years. Look how long they say that. 4,000 years is a long time, right? I mean, wouldn't that take us back to the BC? Right? BCs and shit. If they say that, if they say that's what they're saying about themselves, that's 4,000 years gonna be BC, right? So however, it says Spanish established the first permanent European settlement in America on this site, which became known as St. Augustine, Florida. So I want you to know what tribe dealing with the oldest town, dealing with Europeans, first contact, and the man, explorer Pedro Menendez, and the chief Santeria. So you can get two prominent people you might want to research dealing with St. Augustine, 1565, Nombre de Dios, the oldest town in North America. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to be tied to some of the things we're going to be talking about with the Inquisition. This Menendez is going to pop back up again. So I want you to tap in. I'm putting this out there in the beginning because we're going to go back anciently in a minute. I'm waiting for our guests. If our guest is here, you know what I'm talking about? We can pull them up. And just remember this, though, Timucua. I got that water. You know, if you want to play the joint again, that's how hard it is. You know what I mean? While we wait, if anybody back there, we can pull them up, too. You know what I'm saying? So play that joint one more time, though. Play that. We got that water real quick, though. You know what I'm talking about? Huh? Oh, yeah, they took it off? Okay, that shit was hard, though, boy. Utopia, y'all play it back. Look, got that water. But we're going to play this clip, though. We're going to get straight to the build. But remember this Menendez, though, in Santeria, Timucua, the tribe, the Spanish, the explorer. Remember that now. Menendez, okay? 1565. Ponce de Leon and all that. The markers down there, location, you know, leaps and bounds and all that good stuff. So make sure you tap in. You know what I mean? We're going to play this clip real quick from the Facebook joint, and we're going to get to it.
Pull up what the Africans look like compared to the American. All right, so this is the best I could do, side by side, top to bottom, and you can see the difference between the two. Very, very, very huge difference between the two, how they were depicted.
You heard me? That shit's small.
Oh, let me
It look way better
scroll
in
in.
another frame. To be enlarged,
This is the best I could do.
that's the best we could do.
They don't
I'm talking to
have
Button.
like any
Button got a green too.
feather kilts, no
Yeah,
headdress with the feathers, no tobacco leaves, no bow, no arrow, nothing like that. And then you see the feather kilt, the feather headdress. There's a huge difference between the two when you put them side by side like that, or top to bottom.
From top to bottom.
But that's the best I could do. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Don't be sorry though. You all right?
Yeah. So you can tell what the Americans look like and what they look like today. They look like this. The real Americans, the only Americans, and then they have a distinct difference between the Africans.
Yeah, that's good. We're going.
Let me see if I can pull up
It's interesting
what
though.
the Africans look like compared to the Americans.
Crazy part in both the pictures, they're both colored, dark skinned, swarthy people. Probably the distinction that he's making is showing you that one is dressed a certain way, another one's dressed another way. Obviously, with the book that we're getting ready to go into, is saying obviously about the Aboriginal people of America, the interior when Columbus first got here, is by Glenn Jones that we started on part one. If you ain't watched part one, some of this stuff you're gonna have to go back and watch part one that we did a couple weeks back to understand where we're going now and how it's gonna lead into other things. You know what I mean? With this Aboriginal Story of America series we're gonna do. And again, Satawia, that Mendez, right? And the distinctions part, and obviously in that book that we're gonna pull up, and our guest is with us, Nine and Tecumseh. You know what I mean? Shout out to y'all though. What's up with Nine, Tecumseh? Y'all good? Make sure y'all our sound is right with y'all and everything before we get into the thick of things.
Yo, y'all hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Yo, what's good? What's good?
Yo. What up? What up, Nine? Yeah, I hear you good.
Yo, you can hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
What up? What's good? What's good? You gonna say what's good, Matt?
What's poppin', man? Ain't nothing. Hey, Nine got that Jadakiss.
Jada.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? No, but for real, what up, Nine? Tecumseh, what up with y'all? How y'all doing?
Shit, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about that shit he be saying on the song. They ain't us. When Kendrick Lamar say, mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite parts for some reason. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna front. I had to say I was gonna play a clip, but I got my Kendrick Neutral joints on tonight. You know what I'm saying? My soldiers. You know what I'm talking about? He got me feeling inspired. You know what I'm talking about? He got all them people coming on stage, Bloods, Crips, and Pyrus, and all them folk on one stage, no problems. Yeah, he's a fan. He's a fan. He's a fan. Mm-hmm. 69 God. Ooh, this weekend was crazy. Let me tell you, the clips just from it got me open just before we get started on some shit. I just want to tell y'all that shit had me open this weekend. I ain't gonna front. Oh man, hip hop is alive. Thank you, Lord. Anyways, so yeah, yo, I played the clip. We're gonna go into the joint, and I know both y'all brothers have had a chance to look at the source dealing with the book that we're gonna pull up. We can pull up the book, God, and this joint right here. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with the original history. Again, this book right here is though, you know what? You got some people might be watching and not watch the first one. So if you want to go back to the picture of the book, so people got to catch that, I think, and then you can go back to page 130. But if you can go to the beginning of the book and show people the cover of the book with the author's name, and then we can get back to the page 130. Excuse me, y'all. Make sure everybody's with us here. You know what I'm saying? So with book George Jones, The History of Ancient America. You slide down. It's a little part he puts in it too. I want people to catch that part too after the book, you know what I'm saying, opens up. Shout out to Archives, man. They trying to talk about, they be on their shit, you hear me? Keep going. No, keep going down. It's down. It's going to be, oh, you see yeah, you see who got it, right? Mormons. The Mormons. You see that, Nine? Mormons publishing these kind of books. Very interesting.
Yo, and I told you I was listening to it. I definitely didn't see that.
But this part right here is interesting that it's the original history of ancient America founded upon ruins of antiquity, the identity of the Aborigines with the people of Tyrus and Israel, and the introduction of Christianity by the apostle St. Thomas. George Jones, once again, that's the author of this book. So, we like to show the source. So when we say things, we read these things, we give it to y'all. You can't be like, oh, that nigga just said, or that, Estelucci just said. Well, I'm saying from what I'm reading, a sometimes I'll be triggered in the TikToks and stuff, watching minute clips of what we got and then not watching the whole thing, and y'all be jumping off the ledge. Don't lose your life over this information. At the same time, because I ain't gonna lose no sleep about it. But I thank you for watching. This we're back on one page. Okay, we get right there again. Is that 150? 150? I said 130 earlier. I was slipping. All right, so Nine, you was with us last time, and Tecumseh, you wasn't. So Nine, real quick, from the book that we was talking about, but I know Tecumseh, you know about this book. You know what I'm saying? You know about the book before me. See, I don't even cap about that kind of shit. You know what I mean? And the situation though, this page that I got to is dealing with, obviously the narrative that we've heard about and a lot of different things that we played last time with the theory of the Jewish theory from the Brown University, or the 10 lost tribes being tied to the natives or Aboriginal people of America. Obviously, the European colonies coming over here, and we see certain missionary people having this in their, descriptions of what they think about the people that they're converting, Aboriginal people that they're converting to Christianity. You know what I'm saying? In this time, I think it's tied to the Inquisition, but I think people miss the American Inquisition and why that narrative might have changed. You know what I'm saying? Later on, but I'm just gonna put that out there. Is there anything that y'all want to say before we read a little bit for the folk?
Nah.
Yeah, you can read.
All right, boom. So at the top of this page, it says it was in consequence of this departure from the God of Israel that Isaiah prophesied Jeroboam that he should have 10 of the tribes of Abraham for his kingdom in the times of Solomon, son and successor. Rehoboam, and it says Astra, is Astar, the goddess of the Sidonians and the Tyranians. They are one and the same. So I want to make sure people hear that, you know what I'm saying? That if you ever read anything about the Sidonians, don't think you're reading when you read about the Tyrus or Tyranians, that they're two different people. They're the same people. So it says, without attempting here a refutation of the assertion of aesthetical, I'm not, is that right? Aesthetical? All right. Aesthetical or, see these words right here, distitical. God damn. Woo. My vocabulary going up. These reading this shit right here. Every time I read, I mess it up. Atheistical and deistical. Like deist, right? Like a deist. All right, so deistical. It's a tongue twister for me. Written that the monogram of Christ was known 6 centuries before the nativity. It would be sufficient for our present purpose to establish that the cross was a Tyranian emblem. Now, I want y'all to catch that right there. Nine and Tecumseh, did you know that the cross is a Tyranian emblem at this time?
Not the symbol that they're showing there in the thing. Nah, I didn't know that was actually a Tyranian symbol.
Me neither.
Me either. Before I read this, that's why I'm highlighting it. You know what I mean? I didn't know that, so I thought that's why I went to this page first. Like, yo, I didn't know this from from when we left off in this joint. So the zodiac. It's a universal symbol. I mean, but it's funny. That's why it said right where it's in nativity. You know what I'm saying? Like before, there's people already using this, but prior to Christ, that's what they're basically saying. They're saying that this emblem is tied to them before there was the nativity of Christ. Or anybody else got something different from what I just read. Yeah? Way before. So, more than 300 years anterior to the time of Tiberius, for that period, 332 BC, we must again remark, we are illustrating. It was also known in the time of Solomon, for he worshipped the Tyranian Astarte, which is Ashereth, by the way. That's Ashereth. That's how I like to say her name. But that's another way of saying it. Cool. All right. So now it says whose symbol was the cross. Funny that the cross always be kind of connected to the tree. You know what I'm talking about? Because she also in the biblical scripture is known as the tree, right? That they're cutting down at that time out of the groves of these areas. But Solomon was worshiping the Tyranian symbol, dealing with the goddess of the actual ancient Israelites. That's what they're basically saying to me. What you got for that, now? You come say you can go next.
Yeah. At that time, they were cutting down the Asherah poles. But we know
Asherah poles.
She was a consort. Yeah, she was a consort of Yahweh prior to that. So some people are still holding to the same cross as when she was a consort in the first temple period.
To come say, you want to say something before I read anything else?
Nah, I ain't got nothing on that part right there. I'm kind of tuning in. That's interesting.
Slide down a little bit so I can get some space to read before I go on. Ishtar, Ashtoreth, Astarte, you know what I mean? Some people might even say Isis, right? Some cases might be, right? But I think that's separate. I think she I ain't gonna go into that right now. We ain't here for that. They knew if they did, that is would prove a strong link in the chain of Christianity. And therefore, for their own purpose, they would avoided it. We will shew this as we proceed. In Calmet's dictionary, excuse me, I said that wrong too. Calmet's dictionary of the Bible is found a pictorial representation of the coins of ancient nations. In the plates given, those of Sidon and Tyrus, both must be viewed as one, is the figure of Ashtoreth, surrounded, slide up, by the words, the Zidonian goddess. In the old Phoenician characters, she is standing on the forepart of a galley, emblem of Tyranian navigation, full robed, the classic measure on her head, a branch in her right hand, emblem of peace and reward, and in her left hand, a long cross, emblem of war and punishment. The proportions are the same as the sacred one used at Mount Calvary. It is upright and slightly inclines like the scepter across the inner part of the upper arm of the goddess. The following are Calmet's remarks on the coins. Astarte, holding the cross, standing on a ship, galley, the measure on her head. Number 2. Number 12, it says after that, Astarte standing on her temple, holding the long cross in her hand. The shell, supposed to elude the Tyranian die. In the exury, it is the altar, perpetual fire burning before the temple. You know what I'm saying? It will be observed that above manner of alluding to the cross of the Tyranian goddess is to positive and with the coins as witness to admit even of a doubt of its being an emblem of the Tyranians. And many centuries before the period contemplated by the volume, viz. 332 BC, they then possessed the cross, and among the ancients, they appear to have been the only people, with the exception of the Egyptians, who probably copied it from the Phoenicians to illustrate their own worship of the moon. The Egyptians' emblem was thus, and this has been falsely called, the sacred monogram, for the moon is shown by the circle, and the cross was her general emblem. I want y'all to catch that. You hear me? This is that part that caught me in the book too, dealing with the fact. Then we show the emblem of America as a woman. Y'all recall that they have it in the British Museum? That it's a woman.
Yep. On a alligator or
An
a
alligator, serpent, a dragon.
Yeah.
The alligator would be a dragon in Hebrew, called, you know what I mean, tannin. But so I always look at when I'm reading about Aboriginal people in America dealing with the trees and how they adorn the trees and how this had this matriarchal presence and what the worship of certain things is. Obviously I would look at like this goddess, you know what I mean? That in the Americas they had the same kind of certain customs dealing with a matriarchal goddess type of situation. Is it me or y'all ain't catching what I'm saying?
No, you on point.
What you think, Tecumseh? Dealing with the Tyranians.
Yeah, sure. I think everything you're saying on point. Kind of all line up with what I understand about them. The Tyranians. And I would also say, just to kind of make a different type of connection too, because the city of Tyre fell to Nebuchadnezzar, and then all pretty much those people migrated to Carthage. So you could also say those people are related to the Carthaginians, just for like historical purposes to be brought out later.
And to add to that, Nebuchadnezzar at the same time, Nebuchadnezzar is heading the first expulsion of Josiah.
Yes, I read that too, Nan. That the Tyranians actually enslaved the tribes that were in the territory of the Sidonians, or what we call the Tyranians, at a certain point later on too. You know what I mean?
It's because the Tyranians, so pretty much the city of Tyre came under the control of the Babylonians. So all those people who were there technically wouldn't have been Tyranians. You see what I'm saying? Like the people would have been operating there outside of that period, would have been working specifically under the jurisdiction of Babylon.
I'm glad you said that, jurisdiction wise. Yeah. We seeing that.
And Josiah's people, his children, would be subject to the same thing that the Tyranians are subject to at the same time as Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon is taking over that and putting them in their jurisdiction, like Tecumseh said.
Well, it's crazy because a lot of people that talk about Solomon, and I want to show this shit right here too. It's crazy because within it says, as her olive or her palm branch was emblematical of the reward, Solomon worshipped her and her attributes upon his leaving the one God. From David descended the husband of the Savior's mother, as also the Virgin herself, and after the crucifixion, the cross became the emblem of the salvation and was no more viewed as a symbol of idolatry, as in the time of David's son, or a degraded death, as in the time of Tiberius. May there not, in very change of the character of the emblem in regard to its attribute of worship, from the punishment into atonement, and by the converted disciples from the same chosen people. You can slide up a little more. So this is walking in, and you see it get to the Mexico in a minute. See, but where was I? Mysterious token. Did I go up too far? Go up a little bit. Just make sure I ain't missed nothing.
You hear me? Go up a little bit. I think I'm making my sentence. Atonement. Where was that? A chosen people. By the mysterious token of the great precept by the divine God, that from the evil cometh good. We believe everything tending to the glory of the Creator. And even in the monogram used by Constantine, did it exit centuries before the time of Christ, but which we deny, yet viewing that subject with an eye of faith, it would be found to illustrate the prophets and not detract from them or the prophecies. We have this digressed. The reader requires no apology. The subject will speak for us. In the Mexican ruins, numerous instances are found of the cross. It is the sculpture and the stucco. Some small apertures bear the same form as thus. You see the little symbol right there? It says the lower part being inconvenient for the specific adaptation, it is not therefore used. In one of the minor temples in Palenque, the cross with the lower part is distinct and in the full portion, thus proving the long cross of Astorete. Oh, I say Asherah. You know what I mean? The Tyranian goddess to be upon the ruins. I want to make sure I got that there. See how I just walked from ancient time into Mexico? I don't know how it happened like that, but it's what the book did. I ain't do it. What you think about that, y'all? Because see how it's making the claim now. Ancient America. It's on you now.
I told you earlier that it was coded, that those biblical texts are coded with certain goddesses peoples are of the ancient land of America. So if you're looking at some of Asarte or Ashira's people, they would be followers of the ancient lands. Basically, this is the code that we are trying to uncover because they know that those texts, in a sense, coded every nation on the planet, all 70 plus that was out here. So now they're saying that same symbol is found in the ruins of Mexico, in Palenque, in Veracruz. They get that in the first stories of the Portuguese when they say they seen the same flag in Brazil when they first got there. So it definitely correlates.
Yeah, I mean, the woman sitting on an alligator, and the woman that we seeing in these different places that these people are going to, especially tied to the Tyranians, being that the Tyranians or the Sidonians are also another popular term that people talk about is the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are the Tyranians, the Sidonians, and it will include the people that they took captive, as you just said a minute ago, in the time frame of Babylon.
And Carthage.
And it was in Carthage. Yes, that's Carthage. Carthage are Tyranians. From me walking this down. You know what I'm talking about? I just wanted to start with the book and make sure everybody knew where we was at, because we did, when we did part one, we this is what inspires us, to kind of go into this way, because a lot of other things we found, like, ancient America, this man Glenn Jones. I got other authors, that Barry Fells, America and ancient travelers coming here, they talk about the BCs. He's saying the Tyranians, they're all talking about this Tyranian thing, you know what I mean? Tyrannosaurus X and shit, you heard me? Yeah. On merchant ships in ancient time. I'm gonna show you some information, but I want to start with the book. We can always go back to the book. So God will, as a cliff note before we slide on, don't throw this book away. Leave it in the, in the chamber, just because we got to come back to it. We can slide down a little bit more. I'm gonna give a little more out of the book before we move on, though, because all this is Apollo. It's some ancient American mythology. You know what I'm saying? It's like a good sci-fi movie, some people might say. But this is historical facts of what they're saying about things that's found in the ruins of these areas. So it says reserve the sculpture containing the long cross for a future application. The numerous crosses of a minor character upon other ruins are sufficient to testify to the worship or knowledge of, I say again, Ashereth, but it says Astarte, and her symbolic attributes being known to the Mexican Aborigines. Another analogy is the altars of perpetual fire and they're being watched by the virgins of the sun. This was practiced by the Tyranians as a branch of their worship of the god of fire, Apollo. The Roman Vestals were copied from those of the Phoenicia. The same horrid punishment attended the loss of virtue by a virgin of the sun, both in Tyrus and Mexico. This was also imitated by the Romans. You see, you talk about Balpour and all that right there? Bal and all that? Yeah. This book right here, y'all, get your hands on it and read it for yourself. Because I ain't making none of this up. 9, God, and let me know what y'all think. What's up in the chat? What y'all thinking? If y'all tapped in, you know what I'm saying? Because you heard us reading from this joint. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Imhotep, Trail, Miss Angela, Miss Annette, Monte. What up? Peace to everybody in the chat. Bronze, I see you. Peace to you. You heard me? Yeah. This because we go through this little walk, you know what I mean? Because this book kind of made us go on a little rabbit hole. Like I said, we jumped in a rabbit hole. I'm glad I had 2 weeks. I wasn't going to be able to get everything in this, ancient American Aboriginal conversation with the comparisons being made. Because, when people just say, oh, the 10 lost tribes, I haven't ever heard them talk about the Tyranians. Like Glenn George says, it was Tyranian. The Aboriginals looked like the Tyranians and the Israelites. You know what I'm saying? So that's what made it stand out to me because I always heard about the 10 lost tribe narrative in our research, right? But the Tyranian part, that kind of gave me a whole nother, you know what I'm saying, of how this could be here in America with these emblems that we're finding in ancient times of travel by people we call Phoenicians who are Tyranians. Again, I'll make sure that shit hits you in your head tonight. These Tyranians and shit. You're dealing with Ashira, like He-Man. So, yeah, before we go on, is anything y'all want to say about this? We can slide down a little bit more. This shit good. I'm trying to tell y'all. If I could let this shit just run, you can go on there on archives.org and they'll just play the audio for you. You heard?
Yeah, I don't know how far you was about to go into it, but you brought up King Solomon earlier, and I guess to bring a correlation to that.
Hold on real quick before you say that. 9, you got a lot of echo noise in your background, so if you ain't talking, please mute so we won't get that just in case people messing up out there. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. When you come back, you know what I mean? But I know you got a little background noise, whatever going on. Both people hear it clearly. Go ahead though, Tecumseh.
Yeah. So during the time period of King Solomon, even though like the Bible, and I hate bringing the Bible into it directly, but at the very least you can use it as a, feel me, like an accurate source of history.
Right.
It mentioned like a prophecy in Deuteronomy 18, Deuteronomy 8, that pretty much there was going to be a land in the last days that these people will go to, and there will be hills that they can dig copper out of. Now we know, according to First Kings, that it said that Solomon built the fleet at Ezen Geber. So pretty much Solomon had this fleet, and you brought it up earlier that he traded with King Hiram. The reason I'm bringing, say it again.
Like you said, he traded. Solomon asked the king of Tyre, who is Hiram, to help him build his temple, which was also at that time dealing with Ashira. You know what I'm talking about? So go ahead.
The I guess bringing it to the America part, the interest in the part about that is I don't know if any of y'all ever heard of the Michigan copper mines, but it's these copper mines up in the mountains of or pretty much up in Michigan, that they've pretty much found that since pretty much 53,000 BC, right? It's been over 1.5 billion pounds of copper mined from these mines, right? And it stopped somewhere around like 1200 BC, which is real interesting because like the Phoenicians really don't pop up in history literally until that point. But the interesting part about that though is that like in these mines, it's a very unique mine to where it's pretty much like 99.5% copper. It's very unique to the area. You can't find these copper bits anywhere else other than Michigan. Only less than 1% of this copper that they've mined from these has only been found in the Americas. So it's like this question, where has all this copper gone? Because they've been able to, of course, Europeans go to excavation sites, burial sites, they'll test things, mark it, and they've only found, like I said, less than 1% of this stuff. But and I don't know if y'all ever heard of this. It was a shipwreck that they found in the Mediterranean called the Uluburun shipwreck. And you can look this up. And on this shipwreck, they had these coins, like these bits of copper, and the purity of it was so pure. Boom, that's right there. That you only find these bits of copper pretty much literally in Michigan, which shows you that there's a connection, like historically in a archaeological sense, that these people actually were here creating these mining cities, because we do know the Phoenicians in general were renowned for being commodity traders, high value commodities like ivory, silks, which that's a whole nother conversation, but you find pure silks in the sarcophagi of like the Egyptians, which lets you know that these groups of people had connections to Asia too. And to connect it, I don't want to go too far off, but like you see this mound culture amongst all these different groups, because you find like in the Xi'an province in China, they have their mounds. It's a mound province. Just like when you look at in America, that same mound province that's connected to these Phoenicians would be called the Adena and the Hopewell cultures, which is literally the same areas. It starts in like the heartland of Ohio, but it goes out to like Kansas, Missouri, it goes down to Louisiana, and they're known for these earthworks. So without trying to go, I don't want to go too far into that.
No,
But
actually, you ain't going too far. No, let me tell you something. Yo, God agree. You remember when we went to Louisiana? How long ago was it again? When was it? When we went to Louisiana Poverty Point to the mounds? Again, what year was this? 2009, 2010. All right. So when we went to Louisiana to the Poverty Point, me and God, Teddy T, shout out to Mecca. He the plug this with Brother Joe, the Empress's son, and that's when we came in. We went to the mound and got to see everything and how the mounds, plural, you know what I mean, and how the whole shit excavated and stuff like that. The craziest part is what I'm getting to. I have to always shout out to Oshita, or however pronunciation people might say it from whatever they from, right? But Washita, right, is in her book. Shout out to the Empress Verdiasi, as he called herself. You got the seat number, United Nations, and all that. You know what I'm saying? That's documented. She did that work. You know what I'm saying? But crazy within the book, she was talking about the she people. You know what I'm saying? When we went to the Louisiana, dog, remember the Dogon tribe was there? You know what I'm saying? Well, the dude from the Earth Center, he's a Dogon priest, I should say, not tribe. Thank you for correcting me, because people might jump off the hill. But at the same time, there was people that traveled to this joint that we went to in 2009, 2010, and the mound situation was what we were all. Even though we met, we had the meet and greet. Shout out to Cheeto Pie, he was there. You know what I'm saying? And then the next, before we left, we went to the mounds. You know what I mean? Real talk. You know what I mean? And said it was a beautiful thing. However, though, this Hopewell culture you're talking about, the mound building culture, is really what came into a big, what I'm saying, part in the historical part of us researching. After that, me and God Green got back to the crib, and we were like, yo, moundology, by the way. God Green coined that. You know what I'm saying? After we left, he came up with moundology. I mean, how many mounds did you research at that time, God? Like after we left there, like what? It was mad. Like you had a whole moundology. We could have did a course on moundology at the time. Well, all the sources you had researched after we left Louisiana Poverty Point. We did. So if y'all don't know, the Thomas Party, God Green, Moundology. So if anybody out there try to jump on that wave, you already know where it came from. Don't no, I ain't gonna let y'all get away with it. You know what I'm talking about, God? I ain't gonna let nobody do that to you, dog. But at the same time, in the Moundology conversation and studies of mound, because that's what Moundology means, the study of, right? The mound, like you said, this is taking us back. And she was talking about the mounds and the people not just being in America, it's an ancient culture. So it was like now with this Tyranian thing, and her being the empress, and thinking about Ashira and how she understood, you know, some of its correlation might come back to play. Which I got to say. You know what I'm saying?
If I can just touch on that real quick, because a lot of people, like when I was doing this study, I've noticed a lot of people really never heard of like the Adena or the Hopewell culture before at all. And what a lot of people really don't know is that comes specifically what we call the Mississippian and like the late woodland cultures is a direct descendant of the Hopewell and Adena culture. So pretty much right after the fall of that, like they're mimicking pretty much in so many words what they witnessed this particular group of people do.
Right. The Aboriginal culture of the mound building culture, it's not, it's this, as the man that wrote this book that we got into, and that's what I liked about his book in the very beginning, he's saying, first off, he don't like this word Indies or Indian because there's two distinct Aboriginal groups that are in the Americas when the Spanish, first Europeans, you know what I mean, pull up. Especially being that this book is specifically making a very big distinction between South America and what we call today North America, and how the mound building culture that we find in North America is distinctly different from the culture of people who are in what we call more of the southern, you know what I mean, South America, Central America area. They're building different type of situations. You know what I mean? Have y'all noticed that? Or is it just me?
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? If you look at where the mounds are located, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a parallel here when you research that. Temples and stuff down in South America, but then how the mound building culture is predominantly heavy in the southeast, the woodland, Mississippi culture. Heavy. So, again, something to think about when you go back and research. When you want, got you pulled this up for a reason. Where you want me to go? I'm just wanting you to read something. That's all I'm saying. Okay, anybody want to, you know, we want to go to the highlighted part real quick. I'll make sure everybody, you know, through the audio side, because, you know, we live on Music Me Lounge too. So it says one theory is that the ancient mariners made regular journeys to the Americas to produce copper. Thank you, bro. Procure. That's that margarita. Copper. Phoenicians record journeys lasting 3 years specifically to procure copper. Records suggest that both the Phoenicians and the Vikings arrived on the east coast of the Americas before and during the Bronze Age. The Phoenicians dominated sea trade in the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean region produced vast amounts of bronze and eventually led the way into the Iron Age. Now, peak game now. Phoenicians. I said it earlier that remember we were talking earlier. I was like, the Phoenicians made it to America, right? I would have said that shit, but you know what I mean? Because we were like, where did they get the copper from? How did Solomon get copper at that time in the BC? You know what I mean? Other than this group right here that we call Tyranians, who also be called Phoenicians, Israelite and Sidonians and Tyranians on ships going out into these regions. See, I got a source too. You pulled up one. God, I got one. You know what I'm talking about? Is that my next one? Because it kind of goes along with this, huh? Is the video? But I did send you the source dealing with the 10 mines and shit, right? The 10 islands. I think that might go. I might need to go first before we play the video. Now that you showed this. Y'all remember this? Did I not? I sent it to you out. Do you remember what I'm
You
talking
said the 10 mines or the 10
about? The 10
islands?
islands. The 10 islands. The 10 islands. Dealing with the same group of people.
Yeah,
In this
yeah.
man's reference. I think that goes perfect with this. You know what I mean? Being that we were just talking earlier about how, you know, Safard, Tarshish, which is in that book, Glenn Jones, you know what I mean? the areas of what we've been talking about called by the Romans, Amorica, Lusitania, Galicia, Septimania, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously the Greeks got the term Caesarides. Some people also know as Hesperides. But however, that's the Iberia, Ivory, all that good stuff. You got it? Let me know when you're ready. In this situation though, it kind of gets interesting when we be researching this shit. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I'm saying? For crazy reasons of this part of how this works out. So this link I found again, as we go down the rabbit hole, and y'all with us right here, so we just gonna give it to you how it is, non-biased. You know what I mean? Just what we find correlating to what we talking about. Further to amazing historical evidence, and it says obviously 76, 77, but 76. Our inquiry now turns almost exclusively to Joseph of Arimathea. Who was he? That's the question mark. Why was he such a rich man? And what was his previous connection to the British Isles? Now, this is the part, right? Is interesting because it's not even America. We talk the British Isles, which is Amorica. The Romans would have called the British Isles Amorica. The Greeks would have called it the Caesarides. You know what I'm saying? But since we were in the book talking about the Tyranians and the Phoenicians, the Sidonians, and Israelites, showing them in this area called the British Isles. Let's go down a little bit, God. Slide for me. I want to get a good part of this.
In this,
right
real quick, in this article, I don't know, do it talk about Herodotus?
Herodotus is in this, yes. He's right there.
Oh,
Look,
yeah, I
he
see it
come up
right
right
there. I
now.
see it right there.
Boom.
Okay.
Yeah. So it says, in order to appreciate fully the material now extant, which can help us in our inquiry, we must first of all investigate why the ancient times Britain, or at least that part now known as Cornwall, was sometimes called the 10 Islands. And please note, the word island in Semitic literature can refer to the islands as peninsulas and maritime regions, as a careful study of the Old Testament will prove. It says, see Berger's comments on the word in his companion Bible. Either way, reference. Herodotus, as you asked for, aptly described the father of history, was Greek historian who lived in the 5th century BC. During his life, he traveled over most of then known world, and within his writings, we find him referring to Britain as the Cassarides. That's the Greek word I was telling y'all about. It's the pronunciation places his emphasis on the second I and the final es, and is long. In other words, our EES. I think I'm sounding like Nelly right now. You know what I mean? All these joints. Anyways, in the same manner that we pronounce the Archimedes, the entry in Lindale and Scott's Greek lexicon is as follows. We're gonna slide up. I want to just show how the Greek part, and you know what I mean. He brought up his name. He in here. There's others in here too. That's why this is a good joint right here. This is a good source right here. I'm gonna give y'all because they give sources behind the sources. Slide up, y'all. Keep going. A little more right there. So, no. Go, come back down because Herodotus, he wanted Herodotus. So they can make sure they get it from his own joint. Make sure they see that. What happened? No, it's not sliding up. I wanted them to see his name. He's going like, there it is. He was on the wrong part. You got to go back down now, though, because it says the full quotation of Herodotus as follows. I want to see that part. Now they can get the whole paragraph. And it says, of that part of Europe nearest the west, I am not able to speak with decision. I by no means believe that the barbarians give the name Eridanus to a river which empties itself into the northern sea, whence it is said, our amber comes. Neither am I better acquainted with the islands called the Cassarides, from which we are said to have our 10. The name Eridanus is certainly not barbarous. It is a Greek derivation, and as I should conceive, introduced by one of our poets. I've endeavored, but without success, to meet with someone who, from the ocular observation, might describe to me the sea which lies in part of Europe. You can slide up, y'all. It is nevertheless certain that both our tin and our amber are brought from those extreme regions. Please note that the word barbarian does not carry the modern connotation. The barber part of the Greek word indicated that them, the sound and foreign speech, therefore the word merely refers to all foreign speaking people, those that could not understand. Now we're gonna slide down. I want to get to some good shit though. Just right here, this right here, this right here. See now here. This the correlation with Herodotus and Phoenicians and other things, getting to Solomon. Everything we was talking about with inside that book with Solomon and all that, with Ashira and all that. So here the correlation connection, right? It says the reason Herodotus' assertion was simply that Cornwall had almost a world monopoly on tin production. The archaeology evidence show clearly that the 10 islands were exporting the metal as early as 1500 BC. Biblical ships of Tarshish, a name given to the ocean-going vessels, and used in the same way that Victorians spoke of the East Indiamen, operating mainly from the Phoenician port of Tyre. Tyranians were the main agents in transporting this valuable metal to different parts of the world. Slide down, guys. And using modern equipment capable of determining very precisely the isotopic content of different metals, it has been shown that lead used the drain pipes in the area of Solomon's temple came from the Mendip Hills in Somerset. This type of analysis is made possible because lead samples from different locations contain varying amounts of isotopes of lead resulting from the decay of radioactive materials. Similarly, the temple was adorned with plenty of bronze, and this alloy was made by adding tin to copper. See how that worked out, Tecumseh? And anybody out there listening, when we brought up the copper part, where
Yep.
did he get the copper from?
And I want you to finish this, but it's funny that you even mentioned Cornwall because there's another like archaeological find that was recorded by Paladin Jenkins in 95, and they pretty much found an arrowhead with the same copper mixed with tin or silver that you only find in America, because that's the special part about that copper. But they found it in Cornwall, funny enough.
Nah, you got anything on this? I know your mic was loud, but I want you to tap in. Let me know what you're thinking. You're hearing all this. What you thinking, huh? Are you there?
You can hear me?
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the Aboriginal story of America is hidden in the mythological and biblical legends and lore as these places. And like you said, Phoenicia was waiting every 3 years outside. Phoenicia's outside of the biblical narrative. They're waiting every 3 years for gold about the 1500 BC. I mean, copper in the 1500 BCs. They're outside the biblical narrative looking for a 3-year shipment. Solomon is in the biblical narrative receiving a 3-year shipment of gold and what they consider to be gopher wood, which was the wood for the sailors at the same time. So if you look at Solomon's time frame, he's in the 1400 BCs. He's in the same time as Phoenicia is in this time frame. So when you look at that and you say Solomon got gold from Ophir, where was the lands of Ophir? And you're looking at Solomon getting his gopher wood and all this other stuff. The Portuguese called gopher wood Brazil wood, which they named Brazil after, they say, because of what Brazil means. It speaks of ancient wood. And that will correlate that the Aboriginal story is, if you look at our woods and we have the oldest trees on earth today that will date to that biblical time frame. So we have trees that are bigger than ever. One called Methuselah, they named Methuselah. One tree they call Prometheus. Y'all can Google those trees and say, what are they? They're about 5,000 years old. So if America has the most ancient trees and you need trees for shipping, and this tarnished people or Tyranian people were doing this Tarish shit thing, And Solomon is waiting every 3 years to get a gold shipment that is unheard of by his wedding of so-called Sheba by way of Melech that they left in Ethiopia on the Ethiopian thing. But they said she never even came from Ethiopia. She came from a distant land out west. And there goes that lore of the whole biblical and I would say Phoenician thing. If you look at the time frame, the stories of legend and mythology are just coded history of ancient America and the Aboriginal story and the ancient ties of some Egyptian and Yehudic, if you want to call Jewish, and Canaanite correlations, along with the own legends of the Jews coming supposedly in 600 BC, in the fact that the Mormons think King Zedekiah's son made it out of Nebuchadnezzar's hand to the Americas and became the Mulekites or whatever they say these people are. So the legends always wrap America up anciently as maybe that land of Ophir where they got that gold from, the Solomon's Islands and all these other lores.
I'm trying to hold my thought while you give him all that work right there. Go ahead though. Give it to him. You know what I'm saying? You would give him that work right now. I mean, shit. Because this is interesting to me. I ain't gonna lie. Like I said, this ain't gonna change, you know what I mean, what we know about. Shout out to my Escalus and Maroons outside in present day time. You already know. When we talk about the ancient and what people were trying to, because even the fact that people think, again, that, you know, in the 15th century, this is a new world and that this trade system is something new. Like people coming to America, getting things and exporting things and setting up trade routes of things that we were reading about as in this source. These people, Sir Edward Creasy, English barrister, professor, and historian, is saying. You know what I'm talking about? So the we can slide down a little bit, guys, because I want to get to another part of this right here. Again, you can go back to the book if y'all want to go back in, because another part of the book I'm gonna use before we get out of this part of the topic for the conversation of the Aboriginal story dealing with this book right here. So the British mines mainly supply the glorious adornment of Solomon's temple. Concerning the port of Tyre and the evident wealth of the Phoenicians as traders, we can refer to the prophet Ezekiel writing in about 600 BC. It says Tarshish was the merchant by reason of the multitude of all kinds of riches, with silver, iron, tin, and lead. They traded in the fairs. Ezekiel 27 and 12. Herodotus was not only writer of ancient times to refer to the mining of tin in Cornwall. It should be mentioned in the passing that the Greek navigator and geographer Pytheas, who lived in Massilia, now the French port of Marseilles, in the late 5th century BC, explored the coast of Spain, France, and the British Isles, visiting the tin miners at Belrium, Cornwall. And in that area, it says ICTS. You know what I mean? I can't pronounce that. Ictus. All right, got you. And see, he was the first man to formulate and correct theory of the periodic fluctuation of the tides in relation to the movement of the moon. In his writings, the Cassarides are mentioned by name. Julius Caesar, even. See, these are all sources y'all can go check out for this. Writing in BC 40 and about Britain and his wars, had this to say: in the inland of parts of Britain are inhabited by those whose fame reports to be the natives of the soil. The sea coast is peopled with the Belgians drawn thither to the love of the war and plunder. These last, passing over the different parts and selling in the country, still retain the names of several states whence they are descended. The islands is well peopled, full of houses built after the manner of the Gauls, and abounds in cattle. They use brass, money, and iron rings of a certain weight. The province remote from the sea produced the tin, and those upon the coast iron, and but later in the great quantity. It must be remembered that Caesar collected his information whilst in Belgium, Calais, and Dover. His remarks about tin were therefore hearsay concerning the region where Rome was never to become ruler. So we also Chimus, just other people mentioned here in this paragraph. You slide down. Obviously, Poseidon. If you don't know about that, Poseidus, Greek, all that good stuff. You know what I mean? For y'all Greek freaks out there. You know what I'm talking about? Slide down. Slide down. Fortune Islands. You got that. Yeah, I want to get to something else before. Oh, stop right there. You see Lusitania in 9? Tecumseh being brought up in this area. The Lusitanians. Galicia.
Yeah.
Yeah, touch on that.
So this is again after the Greeks, right? It's the Romans, right? It's the Romans, right? They're in a region of the same area those same areas that the Tyranians and people were going to prior to, right? Based off what they're saying here, right? Greek then Rome, right? I guess how they put it. I might be wrong. That's why I'm asking y'all. I want to make sure I ain't tripping. I don't like making no assumptions and shit.
Factual.
Okay. So the Lusitanians, that's the Lucy, been coming over to the Americas for a little while now, ain't it? 10, black sand. Look what it say. It is sand found on the surface of the earth and of black color is only to be detached in its weight. This is shit like gold. Like I don't want to read this whole thing. Y'all don't have to get this drop. I'm gonna have to just drop this source in the chat for the folk. Put this in the chat for the folk right now, and let them read the rest of this right here. Because this right here is a rabbit hole that I ain't gonna read the whole thing. I ain't gonna do it. Just give the people let them get the source. They can read this with all the references, because this right here has all the references of all the different historians from Greek to Latin to Roman to Hebrew, the biblical, the outside the biblical, English people, whatever you want to go. They get this man dropping sources. So give him this one. Which I got to say though while we do that. God, let me know when you drop it in the chat. We can move on. It's in the chat. So everybody in the chat, check out that link. You know what I mean? Take it with you. You know what I'm saying?
I would say
Go ahead.
Lusitania is West Portugal.
That part. The most western part of Portugal. The port of Gal. You heard? Galicia. Port. Gal.
Yes.
Lusitanians. Romans.
And they the first on the seas later on. They're the first on the seas, supposedly in the 1400s, carrying on this Phoenician trade line. They have the histories of the stars and how to navigate through the astrolabes, and they're the people of the high seas of the thing, which would be the Kingdom of Portugal in the 1400s.
Yo, it's crazy. Slide down a little bit more.
Which would be 80% Black Hebrew Jews, if you want to call them that.
I mean, like the tribe of Asher, whose territories, based off the time frame of Josiah back then, attributed the 12 tribes areas, and the areas that the tribe of Asher so happened to be given the territories of is the areas of the Tyranians. 9, Tecumseh, you got something for this? We can slide on. We put it in the chat. We can keep it moving. What you got, Tecumseh? For me, going to the next situation.
Okay, so it wasn't on like that very directly, but it was about just another piece of archaeological evidence that they found showing that they were here. So it's something called amphorae. Amphorae are like a jar that was used by the Phoenicians and the Romans and the Greeks pretty much to store oil, wine, waters. But they found these. So I'm gonna read this real quick.
Go ahead.
In this article, it says Mysteries of Guanabara Bay. Guanabara Bay lies in the southeast region of Brazil off the coast of Rio de Janeiro on Brazil's Atlantic coast. It is renowned for being the world's second largest bay in Brazil, around 15 miles of shore, located in 100 feet of water and covering space spanning almost 3 tennis courts. You can find a strange detail. There appear on the seabed of relics, ancient Rome distributed throughout the area, clearly far away from home. At the same time, their discovery also creates many doubts regarding historical accuracy. The spot first received attention in 1976 with lobster divers suggesting reports of ancient jars covered in barnacles at the bottom of the bay. Within a short period of time, a diver by the name of Jose Roberto Teixeira actually brought evidence of the same by producing 2 jars. The jars turned out to be made of ceramic material and were tall and tapered in shape. The jars were known as amphorae, or were primarily used by the ancient Greeks, Phoenicians, and Romans. These jars or amphorae served as useful in carrying essential commodities such as water, grain, wine, or oil during sea voyages. The man behind the discovery of the Roman ruins in Guanabara Bay, Robert Marks, has quite an interesting story. A maritime archaeologist by profession, Robert F. Marks was able to silence critics with his discovery by providing people or proving people wrong who believed that the discovery was a hoax. The work of Robert Marks, along with 3 other partners in Brazil, the Brazilian agency Phoenicia, I have no idea how to pronounce that name, helped in bringing out a massive count of underwater relics to public recognition. Interestingly, Robert Marks also linked the discovery to an ancient shipwreck for establishing historical accuracy. So I don't have to go into it too much further, but like you can clearly see, they're showing that these people been here and they have shipwrecks, just like how you see a shipwreck on the other side, showing that they were clearly doing some type of trading here.
Hey man, it's interesting. Let's see again. Brazil. See how you say ancient ruin shipwreck in Brazil? Negro de Terra. Negro de Terra. How long has people not, been hitting that place we call Brazil, especially that you had brought up how Brazil, where it gets his name from, and how he just brought this up. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Just what I thought, real quick, as he said that.
Yeah, it gets its name from that wood that the great shippers were using, and that's what we got to understand, that legends. Those legends are in place because Christopher Columbus knew about Dante's Inferno. Christopher Columbus, in his own memoir, spoke about the land of milk and honey. We all know he didn't mistakenly bump into nothing because he had a contract, which you can get in archives.org. No, you can get on Yale, AvalonProject.com, Yale University. You can get his contract, and you see that he would come across in the places that they spoke about. He was from a high order, and he was of Portuguese background, somewhat of a double agent for Portugal. So they knew where they were going. They knew the ancient land, and for them to name it Brazil is to give it a marker, because the friars spoke of the first time of them seeing the constellation cross, which is Crux, C-R-U-X. The friars spoke about them seeing that for the first time since biblical narratives. So this is why they always had churches first built, because they had to have the preachers, and the preachers really knew the history of the world, and they knew the code, and they had the keys to open up the legends and correlate them to places where the skies tell no lies. This is an ancient thing. The skies tell no lies because the constellations are fixed. Therefore, when Homer is speaking of the Centaurian galaxy in the Epic of Homer and those battles in the Centaurian galaxy, he's really speaking of the constellation Crux and those battles on the land, not in the space with the Andromedas and whatever. So when you get into Homer's Iliad and all these different legends that we have learned, they're speaking of certain places by way of the constellation. And the constellation tells no lies. We're under the constellation of the eagle. And that's the constellation of the most ancient people in the legends and mythologies of Greek, Roman lore. So the Aboriginal, I would end with saying the Aboriginal story of America is they have been harboring the world's exiles for thousands of years. Not only harboring, they have been funding in the copper, gold, iridium, whatever you want to call it, food for thousands of years. The Rosalind Chapel shows corn on it, and it was built before they supposedly got here in 1492. It was built in the 1400s in Scotland, and it has the American corn. It has the American Three Sisters in its architecture. So they knew about this place. It was ancient, and a lot of people could not navigate those seas.
A lot of people, right? You know, dealing
And
with
it's the last place
the
of
Phoenicians.
the people that fell. That's what I would say. So the Aboriginals have been harboring a lot of people.
Right. You said a lot just now. Nah, you just said a lot. You know what I'm talking about? Every time you go into the crooks and the astrological, like how that works out. Because what God Green just said to me, like from a standpoint, it really have to be seen from this angle over here to be able to really know that constellation like that. Because they wouldn't have been able to see it over there from their archaeological sites that they had set up with the constellations in their they astro labs and shit. You know what I'm saying? But they wouldn't have been able to see certain things unless somebody already from ancient time came over here to give them correlations of it. You heard what I just said? I know you went
There
out
you
for a minute.
go.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, it's only two ways in my mind
And
it
those
can
people
work.
that came,
You know what I mean?
those people that came in ancient. Go
ahead.
Yo, Matt, those people that came in ancient times, their stories. Those people that came in ancient times, their stories are hidden in the mythology and the ancient lores. It's hidden in there. And like you say, you have to look at the sky. You can't remove the Perseus from Persia. Perseus sits above Persia, and it'll always be there. The bear will always be above Russia. The eagle, the great eagle they call Equalus, will always be above America. So if you told the stories by way of the galaxies and the stars, then you hide the history in the fact that you have it as a fable and fiction. And with this, or Herodotus' writings, etc.
Deep, right? I got a clip. We're gonna play a quick clip. You know what I'm saying? So we go into this. We're gonna segue from, you know what I mean? Unless you want us to bring back the other book, we might after this joint. If you think we need to go into the book 9, especially or Tecumseh, but I want y'all to hear what this dude got to say about Ezekiel. Who was reading out of the book because in the book it mentioned Ezekiel and it mentioned Tarshish, right? So I want to just be non-biased. And I felt, you know what I mean? We got me. We got a timestamp because I don't want to waste our time, but at the time of the mark what he goes into, and you see to say Ezekiel for everybody out there in the Bible want to pull up their books and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's there for you to research because that's what this guy right here gonna break down. No, just let it play. Just let it play. Let the man get a shot.
Greetings. This is Paul the Poke from paulthepoke.com. Today's topic: who is Tarshish? This comes from the scripture in Ezekiel 38, verses 13. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish with all its villages will say to you, have you come to capture spoil? Have you assembled your company to seize plunder, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to capture great spoil? So the question is, who is Tarshish? And there's a lot of conjecture speculation, but the bottom line is the term is a riddle. Nobody really knows for sure where Tarshish is. Tarshish, it's hard to say, is. It's a Phoenician word meaning smelting plant or refinery. The term is used in connection with ships, merchants, and trade in 1 Kings 10, verse 22, and 1 Kings 22, verse 48. Phoenician boats used to sail the sea regularly, transporting smelted ores from the mining towns in Sardinia and Spain in the Mediterranean Sea. So one thing we can look at is take a look at a map of the Mediterranean Sea. And we'll get some landmarks here. There's Italy in the middle. See it right there. Then we got Spain. Well, apparently they used to travel and take smelted ores and stuff from here and transport it back over here to around Israel. Go up a little higher. Here we got Turkey. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Some more information. A Phoenician inscription from Nora in Sardinia from the 9th century refers to Tarshish, a smelting site on an island. Smeltery fleets or Tarshish ships hauled material from this and other mining stations in the western Mediterranean. So who knows which island it was out here? Sardinia would have been in and around Italy. Ships of Tarshish were built by Jehoshaphat in imitation of Solomon. That's according to New Unger's Bible Dictionary. It's a seaworthy merchant vessel able to make voyage to distant Tarshish. Some people think Sardinia or even as far as Spain. I need to get into Portugal. I need to stay back here in Spain.
Lusitania.
Tarshish is also the place Jonah wanted to head to. And Jonah was told back here by God, hey, I want you to go east to modern day Iraq. And Jonah said, nope, I'm going west. So either way, he was going this way. God said, go back.
Hey, you know, he said that he talked about Jonah and the whale, right? When he talked about Jonah in the parable of him being in the whale's mouth, in the fish.
Yep.
Right there?
Yep.
You know, it's funny that there's a group of people that was out there in the Atlantic going into Canada hunting whales.
I was just about to say that. It's funny enough because they talking about the bass.
The bass, right? And in biblical time, this man's making the parable of Jonah not going east, as some people propose, but obviously going out past that Pillars of Hercules, Straits of Gibraltar, into the Atlantic where whales would be. Like the bass were hunting up there by Canada, the Labrador.
Another legend.
I'm just saying.
Another legend.
I mean, just to put that out there, when I heard him say it, I was like, that's interesting. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is okay. Jonah and the whale. But where are whales at? You know what I'm saying? Think about that, y'all. My fault. My bad. You know what I mean? Where are whales at? Are the whales in the Mediterranean like they are in the Atlantic? Up there in Canada? They are? I said, he's going west, though, to go look for whales.
And think about
the
that.
whale's mouth?
You said where the whale...
Go ahead.
Yo, Mac.
Yeah, I'm listening to you. Go ahead, dog.
You talking about whales, right?
Yeah.
The proclamations of the Commonwealth of England in the 1600s, they made over 15 proclamations that had to do with whaling when they first got here. So looking at their own laws in the proclamations of the English Crown, their first 20 proclamations, at least 5 of them had to do with whaling. Some of them had to do with banishing vagabonds to the Virginia colony, but some of them had to do with whaling. But to look at it on a whole level of the legend, their laws, and now looking at what you just read, it just solidifies how they hide their history in the legends.
What happened, dog? It's all good. We're gonna wait for. Let me know we're good. No pressure. No, at the end of the day, I'm just looking at all the parallels of the, rabbit hole we walked down for those who with us tonight live on this Aboriginal story of America. You're like, damn, well, we've been talking about a lot of stuff over there, but this is all ancient stuff, and these are the ancient maritime people. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, I think I've heard in the conscious community knows about the Phoenicians being ancient sailors. You know what I'm saying? So, but being very descriptive in ancient time of the places that today we would call them when you're looking at them in the ancient time, feel me, P? Like in ancient, the Greeks are saying is this. You know what I mean? Today we would say it's Britain. You know what I'm saying? Europe. But then they're saying these words, unless you go into the Greek and historical, that the historians at that time frame in the Greek or the Roman or the Latin, you know what I mean? They're all having their different names for these areas in their languages, funny enough. And what y'all think about that, Nine and Tecumseh? Is it that, you know what I mean? It's there, right? Greek, Latin, Hebrew, within these Roman, Greek, and Hebrew, which is the Bible, historical records of people traveling and stuff, right? The laws and shit. What you thinking?
Facts.
All right.
That's how they coded it, just like you said it. That's exactly how they coded it.
Right, in the layers of migration of the first people speaking, because even the Phoenician alphabet is tied to basically what we call the Hebrew alphabet, the Aramaic. You know what I'm saying? It would be the same variation. You know what I mean? So the Tyranians and the Sidonians and the tribe of Israels and all them, they would have the same kind of linguistic, alphabetical, you know what I mean? Tie. Like Tyrania. And that's some shit. But still, Phoenician roots of the Celts and the Jews. I just wanted to show you that's what the white dude, you know what I'm saying? Is what we playing right now? It's the next one, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. But the white guy before that we just played, shout out to him, that was the Tarshish. So that was showing also how that's tied to Sephard, which is Roman, Latin, biblical term tied to Tarshish in the regions that the ships were going into to get certain materials from. And it happened to be today what we'll call Spain or Lusitania or Portugal. And then that would be the lower area of where the 10 islands, which would be the northern area of what we would call America or Britain or Celts and areas like that, the Basque, or up and down the Iberian, by the way, which is from that British island territory going into the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules. You heard me? You ready? Let's slide. We're gonna play this clip real quick. Unless something you want to say something, Nana, to come say before we play anything. We good.
I got a source. I don't know if you want me to read it after, but it kind of aligns with both things: the Celt situation and Tarshish.
You want to let them have that first?
Is that
which one?
last?
It's on you. It's on you. What you want to do? You want to go this first? Or?
I'll read it. It's real quick.
All right, go ahead. Read that real quick. Yeah.
Let's see.
He said, "Which one is it?" God want to know which one.
The last one, the Sefer.
The last one.
www.sefer. And for any Bible scholars, this is probably like if you really try to look into historical shit, Sefer probably the best definition or best translation you can get. Got all the missing books, including Acts 29. But if you put in key search, could you just put Tarshish? All right. So like this chapter pretty much kind of aligns everything that you really just said. So starting at the beginning of it, it says, as for the Druids, it appears that they were in fact descendants of the house of Yehuda, Judah through Zerach, the firstborn, and his lineage being traced through his son Calcol, the founder of Athens, and his son Galathus, the father of the Gallic people, who would come to inhabit Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. According to the Jewish Virtual Library, an ancient tradition places Jews in Seville at the time of the destruction of the first temple, 586 BC. Another legend in Seville that some of the Jews who were exiled by Nebuchadnezzar that we was talking about earlier settled in Granada, having arrived on the Iberian Peninsula at the destruction of the first temple. Amazingly, there is even some speculation that Jews settled in the region as far back as 11th century BC. In fact, several influential Jewish families in Seville, Abrambe included, claim to be descendants of King David. According to another report, a tombstone was found there bearing the inscription in Hebrew, Adonarium, treasure of King Solomon, who came to collect tax and tribute and died. A source of this belief rests on the identification of Seville, which is the distant port of Tarshish, which is mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah, now what you got anything on before we play the video? Because I think that was right there. I did align up to what I was saying. Yeah, it's in the Bible. Tarshish, dealing with ships and Tyranians. And, you know what I mean? My bad, moving shit around. Yeah, what you think now before we play this clip? Go ahead when you load it up. I think that lined up for me. But hey, for each his own. What y'all think in the chat? What y'all thinking?
I would say it definitely correlates. It correlates with the time and what we already covered in the El Negro series with Tamar Tefi of Judah, how she went to Ireland. That's 600 BC. So we're showing Zedekiah's daughters getting away from Nebuchadnezzar and Necho. Remember, they were beefing with both of them. So we show that, Zedekiah had 8 kids. And out of them 8 kids, 3 got away. 2 went to Ireland, and 1 supposedly made it to America, which is in the Book of the Mormons. So one of the sons, Mulek, he made it to America. Tamar Tefi made it to Ireland. And another one, Tefi Tamar of Judah, made it to Scotland. So we already showed that, and that runs along in that 600 BC time frame of people that are exiled, their daughters and sons being wedded into the holy positions of the monarchs.
Bet. So we're gonna play this clip right now. So we want to make sure we get this in a good time frame when we're doing it. So make sure everybody get this. I know how it is, long joints. So we're gonna play this clip real quick.
So from the last video, it almost looks like Jed Skeptic was right all along, that Scotland was taken over by, foreigners who took over the land,
Almost, not quite.
And in this video, I'll explain why. It all boils down to one term, and that's Phoenician. Now, we're back in the book here, chapter 6 of When Scotland Was Jewish, and saying here, when did Jews arrive in Scotland? So let's have a look. Several sources posit that persons from the Levant, North Africa, and even Italy had visited southwestern England, near Cornwall before the Common Era. There were rich tin mines in this region that were exploited by the early Phoenicians, 800 BCE, who traded with ports from France and northern Africa to Italy and Greece. Because the Judeans, Jews, often worked with the Phoenicians as trading partners, some could have reached Britain as early as this time. The demography of Cornwall still attests to a significant incidence of J and E3 genes in the region. I would go even further than that. I would say that the Jews were the Phoenicians, because they shared like a common language, they shared the same alphabet, everything. So, most people don't quite go that far. They get up to worked with, but they don't say they're the same, but I think they are the same. Anyway, according to Brooks, there are numerous well-established geographical links between the Hebrews of the Mediterranean and peoples of the British Isles. The early name of what is now Cornwall and Devon in southwestern England was Dumnoi or Dammoni. Oh, sorry, I mispronounced that. Dunmoni or Danmoni, which antiquarians have glossed as meaning Dan's tin mines. Among others, the distinguished Semitic studies professor Cyrus Gordon suggested that this name, seen also in the Irish myth of the Tuatha tribe Dedanan, was identical with that of the biblical tribe of Dan. Finally, the Celtic scholar John Rhys assembled strong evidence of Hebrew colonization of Britain in early times. Ireland was known as Iberion, and the ancient name of the Israelites was Ibri or Iberi, derived from the proper name Eber or Heber, the eponymous ancestors of that people. Now, what was that was saying about the Picts? What they really call themselves? They call themselves Iberi. Very interesting. So there's a lot of connections between the ancient Picts and the Jews, what we think of as the Jews today. You know, and when you read the Commons Beaumont, like Britain, the Key to World History and his other books, this is covered actually by Jed on his channel. He covered all this. Would suggest you go check that those videos out if they're still up on his channel. But he covers all this with Britain, the Key to World History. And by the way, Jed at one point made some very, very good videos. I just think his channel's kind of gone off the cliff in more recent times, but that's neither here nor there. Now, if we skip forward to...
Hi, we're Visible, the wireless company that makes things visible. With us, what you see...
What y'all thought about that clip right there? You know, it's cool when they say it. When we say it, you know how that go. Cool. It's cool when you do it. When I do it, you know, I thought about. Hey, that's when she. No, you didn't show the book. No, yeah, show the book. Well, he was just reading from on that video. It's the same that we've been telling you in part 1, and this is in part 2. That's why I referenced when Scotland was Jewish, because I've been reading this book for the last couple of years. You know, be real with y'all, this book is a great book. I'll give reference to you to go read, especially if you're reading the whole picture of things tied to ancient time coming into those areas. You know what I'm saying? And another term that's in this book, going into the Inquisition part of this conversation before we slide on y'all tonight, because that's the other thing, the American Inquisition, right? We're like, how does all tie in from the ancient stuff to Well, this is it's a term that we had Lee Cummins and Cootie Mayo on our show. If you go back and watch that joint, and in that I was talking about this book then, and I was referencing the Moranos that's in the Scotland when Scotland was Jewish, and the fact that the term Moranos being used from the Roman time frame of when this area is called Armorica, Lusitania, Septimania, Galicia. You know what I mean? And obviously, this would be after the time frame of the exile that Nine Ether you've been covering with the El Negro series. Are you following me now? For me, what our conversation is tonight with all this, and how this all, because I know we've been doing this. And Tecumseh, are y'all catching what I'm saying? Are we all on the same page so far?
Yeah, I'm following.
Now, what you think?
Definitely, keep going.
All right, well, within this joint, it got Morano in it, and obviously, you know what I'm saying? That's the term that I've been more focused on, because how it gets into the Americas and how it becomes tied with the indigenous people, the Aboriginal people, who obviously we just got to read about, could have obviously made it from back then, tied with a whole bunch of other people, whatever, especially getting into the time frame of the 1500s of AD. So the ancient conversation where people saying things are upside down and all that, I hope this, helps them a little bit. While it might not work out that way, but at the same time, or the mixture of things that's going on, you know what I'm saying, and who's building what. And the distinction of that book Glenn Jones wrote, that book, you know what I'm saying, that, is kind of correlating to all this stuff that you just heard that dude just read out of that's tied to this book. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick. So we're going to get to the Inquisition part now. in the Americas before we get out of here. Just I just wanted to make sure that right there was laid out. I'm ready to go. Pull up the video. Let's go. Shout out to the sister right here. Tap in.
Columbus discover America by accident, or was he following a charted course and knew exactly where he was going? History tells us that his expedition was to prove that the world was round, but did he have another agenda? The time period that he decided to make this journey was significant. Ferdinand and Isabella, King and Queen of Spain, issued an official order known as the Spanish Inquisition on March 31st, 1492. This order gave Jews, Muslims, Moors, or Moranos living in Spain the choice of baptism or exile. From the Middle Ages to the 17th century, Europeans depicted Moors as being black or dark-skinned and Muslims as Moors. The Spanish Inquisition extended for over 350 years, and as a result, more than 160,000 Jews were expelled directly. This order allowed forced conversions, torture, and brutality, and millions of people were put to death. The very same year as the Spanish Inquisition, Ferdinand and Isabella, King and Queen of Spain, commissioned Columbus's expedition to the Indies. He reached land in the Bahamas on October 12, 1492, and was not surprised that it was populated because he had translators with him that spoke Hebrew so that they could communicate with the inhabitants. So Columbus did not discover America. However, the word discover had to be used. It may have been a legal term which would allow them to go in and claim or conquer the land. Of course, he also brought along conquistadors who were ruthless, merciless, and conquerors. Oddly though, when they met the first inhabitants in the islands, Columbus's concern was, where's the gold? However, the inhabitants were often described as having a gentle nature and peaceful existence when they were approached. Because the conquistadors came with the intent to steal, kill, and destroy, the violence escalated very quickly. Less than 6 months later, Columbus returned to Spain with gold, spices, and captives from the Indies and was received with the highest honors by the Spanish court. Because Catholic monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella supported Columbus's successful venture, Pope Alexander VI donated the Americas to them and made them legitimate rulers, giving them sovereignty over all the newly found lands in the Atlantic. Sources have estimated that when Columbus landed in Hispaniola in 1492, the very same year as the Inquisition, there could have been from 400,000 up to 4 million people. But by 1507, the population had been reduced to 50,000, and by 1531, it was 600.
So, what she just said is a good breakdown of how Inquisition, and I'm going to give quick references in part 3 when we do it. I'll go into more detail and show some things that we have about this Inquisition time frame, but I want to just reference and highlight a couple of these things, So show me the joint real quick. Let people get this real quick. Shout out to the sister that, broke that down, you know what I mean? Dealing with the Inquisition tied to the Indies. A document you might want to look into is 1510, the Requiremento. It's very important to the Inquisition. Obviously 18 years after the time frame of 1492, but the Inquisition is tied to the document of the Requiremento that was passed actually in 1510, which is actually being in the beginning of the show. I talked about 1565, Nombre de Dios, St. Augustine, Satawia, you know what I'm saying? And the Timucua, and St. Augustine, the oldest town in North America. Well, the Spanish, who also had Panama in 1510, set up what we call Nombre de Dios, you know what I'm saying? And that is tied to the oldest town in that area of the Spanish settlements in the Americas. If you look it up, coincidentally, it has the word Nombre de Dios tied to it. To get to the point, it was set up in the same year of Requiremento of 1510. Now, getting to the document. It says official document, Spanish Inquisition on the American continent, Mexico City, 1650, directive to report Moranos. So this word is, you see the estimated value of this joint, 10,000 to 15,000. You know what I'm saying? Now, secretly practicing Judaism, and now it's crazy. Even though the J is just being used in this time when it comes about when you go research, but it was Judaism, Yahudism, with description every Jewish customs. Just slide down, show them the joint real quick. This is the document. This is the document that is worth this much money, showing the Inquisition, you know what I'm saying, taking place in the Americas. I think there's another one real quick to show the other one real quick. This is the official. This is where it was auctioned off. You know what I'm saying? And you chat GPT and shit. You know what I'm saying? Into English. You know what I mean? But this is the actual thing dealing with the Inquisition in the Americas against Moranos. Boy, you got cars racing by you, boy. Serious. They ain't playing up though. Fast and Furious. But yeah, this whole right here is showing that though. So what you think now? I'm showing this document. You see, I just had it. Cause when I found it, I'm like, look at how much this joint going for and what they got going on. You know what I mean? And dealing with, again, obviously the Inquisition making it to the Americas, which you can't talk about the slave trade without talking about the Inquisition. Right? You feel me? You can't talk about the slave trade without talking about the Inquisition. You won't get a proper description of the people who are being persecuted and being put on slave ships in the first place without understanding the descriptions of the Inquisition and who are being persecuted. You feel me? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Still being considered Moranos.
Outside?
Practicing.
Yeah, Moranos.
Practicing secretly. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. If you hear me, you know what I'm saying? Now to come say what you hear.
Me, man?
You hear this? Yeah, I hear you the whole time. You good. You can't hear me?
Yeah,
can y'all hear me outside?
Doing the same thing in 1492 as they doing in 1650. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I want to show. That it's that timetable of from 1510 to 1650 that this document is showing that they're doing. The Inquisition is in the Americas heavily, as it's going to say right here, in that right underneath where he highlights it. Can you mute real quick so I can read this part to the people? We're going to move on to the next joint. I want to make sure everybody hears this. You know what I'm saying? Bet. It says the New Spain colony founded in 1525 on the territory of North and Central America, and its first settlers included Moranos who had been persecuted by the Inquisition in their homeland, Spain. In 1571, the Inquisition sent representatives abroad, established branches in colony, and began persecuting Moranos throughout the New World. The purpose of the document, such as present, was to instruct the representatives of the Inquisition and the public, and they contain a wealth of information about the heretics and their sins. According to the Catholic faith, it was not unusual for these documents to contain information which had been lost to the communities of Moranos themselves. They serve as a rare source of information for Moranos regarding the Mizotov and traditions which they have forgotten. I mean, Morana, Maroons. Slide. So we want to put that out right there. You know, this guy is the highlight of that Morano tradition. You know what I mean? Kind of give you the spiderweb connection of Moranos in North America. And the guy by the name is Francisco Menendez. Now, remember in the beginning of the show, I told you about Pedro, right? And his last name was Menendez. Now, he's in Florida in 1565, right? And later on, You know what I'm saying? This guy by the name of Francisco Menendez. He's at Fort Moses. Garcia Real, Saint Bo, gonna play a little, give you a little background on somebody tied to the Inquisition time frame called a Marano in Florida. You're North Florida, tied to certain wars like the Yamasee Wars and stuff like that. Go ahead, go. Yeah, I guess give him a little bit. Just give him, we get out of here. Give him a little bit.
Here at this place, Fort Mose, established in 1738, people are arriving from English colonies as far away as Charleston, making the same perilous journey that I did a number of years ago. It was the Edict of 1693 that allowed for any man, woman, or child enslaved on an English plantation to find their freedom in Spanish Florida. The English will not rest until they have taken all of Spanish Florida and returned all of us to slavery. Fort Mose, its location 2 miles north of the city, is Spanish Florida's first line of defense against the English. My brave soldiers and I have vowed to fight until the last drop of blood has been spilled. We will protect the freedoms, not just of ourselves, but of those of the people of St. Augustine, who will fight more bravely than those who have been enslaved.
Francisco Mendez. And now I'm gonna give you a little backdrop besides that. I always like, because other people put this out, we just kind of dig into the details a little analytically, you know what I'm saying? Which only, we give you pieces of, if you interested, like that's why we do it, we present it. You can see the web, if you can see the connection, go back and watch from the beginning to how it's, you catch it, how you catch it. But however, appreciate you for tapping in and listening. And if you agree to disagree and you got something that can go and, you know what I mean, put us on the Astra path, the upright path of this Macario conversation, then we could do that. Shout out to my mama S. Lucy outside. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my maroons outside. This is Francisco Menendez. Again, Fort Mose. He's a Marano. That's a factual thing tied to certain things. Go ahead though. We can go to the next thing. Dealing with Francisco, by the way, Menendez. Castillo Dan San Marcos. I think we're gonna slide down. We ain't playing the video. I want just a little bit of the work. You make it a little bit bigger for the folk. Now, now do this. I want them to see how they talking about the whole conversation of certain things and obviously dealing with the colonial Florida and St. Augustine. And that's dealing with 1565 with Pedro Menendez, right? All right, now slide down. Go down. Keep going. The same picture that you said the other dude in the video is just like him. Okay, correlation. They keep it. Africans come to Florida. They come on Maranos, basically. Slave trade, 1565. Pedro Menendez, see? He came back up. Look how he come back up. When Pedro Menendez de Alves established St. Augustine in 1565, he was accompanied by free and enslaved Africans. They worked on early fortifications, sawed timber, and built several structures, including a church, blacksmith shop, and archery platform. They also cleared land for planting and harvested the crops. In October 1687, the first recorded fugitive slaves from Carolina arrived in St. Augustine. Governor Diego de Coronga dutifully reported to Spain that 8 men, 2 women, and 3-year-old nursing child had made good their escape in a boat. 6 of the men were put on a new Castillo de San Marcos, but 2 others were assigned to work with the blacksmith, a possible indication that they already had skills in that area. The women became domestics in the house of the governor. All were reported paid for their labor. You see what I'm saying? This is just time frame, 1687, Florida. So you can slide down though. We won't get to the dude, another Menendez. Keep going. Black Town, obviously. Oh, wait. Matter of fact, let me see that real quick. We can get the highlight of it. They can go back and flash it. Garcia Real de Santa de Mose, also known as Fort Mose. You know what I'm saying? First, shout out to it. First legally established free African settlement, as they say in North America. Maranos. Oh, there he is right after that. There he goes. The original fort was described as an earthen wall fort in the Indian-type thatched huts. The community housed 38 men and their families with estimated population of about 100 people. The men were required to serve in the militia and the would be called on defend St. Augustine in times of attack. The Spanish officers was nominally in charge of the settlement, but the militia captain, an African veteran of the 1715 Yamasee Wars, named Francisco Menendez. Slide on, God. See, Francisco Menendez Amorano was truly the community's leader. And it goes on because he there he is. He gonna flash him. This is the Morano Menendez, Luso Africa, Lasando, Morano, Moreno. You know what I'm talking about? Persecuted because of the Inquisition in America. Feel me? In the time frame. He's here. There's a he run away. They say he run away with the Yamasee, and he becomes the leader. He's an interpreter between the British wars. He fights against the British with the Yamasee. Then turn around and they go into the down to Fort Mose. Then he ends up being the leader of the black militia in this free town. This man is moving around. He gets captured after that. You know what I'm saying? Ends up going to Cuba. You know what I'm saying? Havana. He got him a margarita. You know what I'm saying? Then he came back. But look, Francisco Menendez was on some shit. You heard me? This Morano right here. Yeah. During the time frame of the Inquisition and Spanish situation tied to it gets deep too. It's gonna take us into some things and the Aboriginal Story of America Part 3. We're gonna go into that because I wanted to get you on a time frame of certain things when we talk about the Inquisition. We're gonna pick up from the Inquisition when we go into Part 3. And remember this right here part. And remember, obviously, again in the beginning, 1565, that first settlement, St. Augustine, the tribe was the Tumuco, right? Satawia, right? Got that water, right? Okay, so make sure you understand what's going on here. Menendez Pedro was with the Tumuco, but Francisco Menendez was with the Yamasee. You know what I'm talking about? And both of them is Moranos. Got that water. But that's what it is, though. What you think, Tecumseh? I think I knew he was having complications. Before we get out of here, though, we're almost done. Is there anything you want to say about this? We slide down a little bit more meat for the folk to look at on the screen for information.
I ain't got nothing I really want to add to it for real.
What you think about this, though? What's your thoughts on what I just presented, dealing with the Moranos and the Inquisition in North America, right? Such as him.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. It line up with pretty much everything we done been bringing out before. I ain't never heard this before though, so I'm really just kind of soaking it in.
Well, in this paragraph right here, although the majority of Africans married other African descent, a number of them married white Europeans, Native Americans, and mixed blood spouses, and a multiracial and multi-ethnic society developed throughout the Americas and the Caribbean. The Spanish developed a highly organized system for identifying the precise gentile heritage of an individual. Full-blood Africans were known as Morenos, Moranos. You heard me? You see? Tecumseh, God, P, y'all there in the chat? What y'all thinking about that? I mean, it's right up. People of mixed African, European, Indian ancestry. Look how it said, people of mixed African, European, Indian ancestry were known as Castas. That's the Negro. 9 back. It says, with other nomenclature, depending on their heritage. For example, if a Spaniard married a Moreno woman, their children would be mulattoes. If a mulatto married a Spaniard, their children would be known as Moriscos. The children of the Spaniards and Native Americans were called mestizos, Muskegee. You heard me? You see me? Is you with me? Is you follow me? Anybody out there? Tap in. To come say anything you want to say, we slide. Cause I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it right there until part 3. I ain't even gonna got that. Oh, that's not the real boy. That shit was hard in the beginning of it. Go ahead. What you got to say?
Nah, I ain't got nothing I want to add to that. That's a mic drop right there.
Yeah, I'm out of there. Till next week. Shout out to Blaze, man. You know what I'm saying? It's summertime. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, probably out with his son Nas out there in the water. You hear me? It's a good time. Stay away from them sharks though. They be in the shallow waters these days. I've been seeing. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the movies are telling us something. You know what I mean? But peace to everybody that pulled up on it. You came after the fact, like, subscribe, and share. Tap in with us this Tuesday. Everything works out because last week Tuesday, Lee Cummings had a little situation, but he actually hit me on the phone. So I'm gonna call him out live right here like this. And he hit me on the phone after the fact. We're like, look, man, I want to make that up, so we're gonna run it back. But we're gonna do with the 13 county situation, and he wants to show something. So that's how I like to do it. Okay, no pressure. So on Tuesday, pull up on us, and then we'll see you next week Tuesday. The next, our last Sunday, being it's the 23rd, it'll be the 30th. So tap in with us for that right there. We see you. It's summertime. It's a campaign year. The harsh reality is live life autonomously. To come say, oh, Nine, you back, man. Did you hear anything that you've been out of there? Like, what's going on? You heard anything I was saying or anything? He was backstage? Okay. All right, then I'm gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, I heard you, but I was out.
Yeah, I got you though. We cool. Ain't no pressure.
I heard everything.
Okay. I put my opinion on it, you heard me? I didn't say, even though I got opinions, I put my opinion on that one, you heard me? So I ain't got no pressure. That's the Lucy Amakari, you heard? Yeah. And look, and everything that is showing, you know what I'm saying, from Mestizo to Moscago to the Muskie to the Musty to the Muskegee to, you know what I mean, that mixture, you heard me? That one drop that we were drawing the other day with the 1/4 and all that right there. Yeah, all this shit correlate in the caste systems and the Inquisition. You can't talk about the slave trade without talking about the Inquisition because it takes place in Europe, it goes into Africa, it comes into America. You know what I'm talking about? Right, it shows you in Florida, 1565. You know what I mean? First settlements and people that's involved tied to the titles that are using tied to the Inquisition. That, you know what I mean? I don't know what y'all want to know, but I just gave what I got to you. I ain't got nothing else to part 3 part. You know what I mean? And I ain't gonna say next time we see it, we'll do part 3 because all this information got to be put together for y'all to see it. And I want to, present it with the party. If y'all, now I need to come say there's anything we ain't put out, but hopefully the folk catch on and tap in.
Hey,
Veronica. It's on you, dog. What you gonna say? It's good.
Hey, curious, what year does the Inquisition end?
The Inquisition does not actually end, from my recollection of understanding on this timeline, 1835. 34.
And what year
33?
does slavery end?
What do you mean slavery end? I mean different colonies, as you see when we can talk about what happened going into
In the
1700s.
British colonies, 1830.
Or the British colonies is 1830.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. What about Lord Dunmore, who was telling Francisco Mendez and them, if they make it to Spain, they will be free underneath the Catholic faith, though. They got to convert. The Yamasi too, and Timucua, or whoever, Indians that don't want to be tied to what's going on when the British come in. And when I go into part 3, you know what I'm talking about? And we talk about Charles and them, and how the Indians and the Virginians going up that way, D-Day lands to the English, the British colonies, but then the ones south of that region of Virginia, such as the people they call Yamasi, the Wale, and the Timucua, and all these different groups we can talk about. Okay now. Muskie. Yeah, keep it. Ooh, this is gonna get stank. I'm playing with y'all. 1834, right? All right, so 1834, the Inquisition ends. To keep it on a marker. Slavery, 1834. What's happening in America still after this Inquisition on the record ends? Is there not Negro wars taking place? Is there not the American and Mexican War taking place? Is there not the
Indian War?
Huh? What? Come on, Indian removal on this side. What's going on in America when the Inquisition thing ends, huh? I'm telling y'all now, the Aboriginal story of America, from black codes. Does it end? Does it end? People want to know why they ain't like us. They ain't like us. Mm-hmm. They are fair. You heard? Yeah. Tap in, man. We see y'all next week, Sunday, man. I mean, Tuesday, actually. We're going to be with y'all Tuesday. Shout out to Monte with the news 3 times a week. Anything? I'm ready to go, though. Slide. You want to play Maroon J or some shit? Oh, we got it, though. Slide, y'all. See y'all next week. Appreciate everybody that tapped in. Hope y'all like it. Aboriginal Story of America, Part 2. Shout out to Tecumseh. Shout out to 9 Ethan and everybody that tapped in. Peace.
Niggas, the top 5 lister, double S drifter, separate sipping, and you know I came with it if she cute with it.
Dope.
Start to feel alone. I just play the voicemail that I say before things change. Now I read the message you sent, trying to tune out when you say I know you love me, but